Welcome to Southside Select's Hangout. I'm Slyder Nelson, and joining me for this week is Hazy Mania and Pnoles. And our topic of discussion right off the bat, some big news this week for Major League Baseball, the new instant replay changes. And if you have been under a rock and you don't know as far as what the new instant replay changes are, each manager now will have one challenge throughout the course of the game. If they were to challenge a play, let's say a play at first, and it shows that the runner was safe instead of being out, they get a challenge later on in the game. And starting the seventh inning, umpires can use the replay booth for any close calls or plays that may need a second look at it. So with Hazy and Pnoles on the podcast, thank you guys so much for joining again.
Evening.
The first question I want to ask you guys is, based on the new rule changes with instant replay, how do you think this is going to impact the games? And I'll start with you, Hazy.
Well, I think that right off the bat, I think you're going to have a lot of managers that don't really know how to use it, to be perfectly honest with you. You're not going to really see it. I don't think you're going to really see it kind of start making a real impact in the game until probably July, August, after everybody's kind of had a chance to see how it works best. They're going to try some different strategies, which spoiler alert, I think we're going to talk about here in a couple minutes. But I think everybody's going to be a little bit gun shy to use it, especially some of the older, more seasoned veteran managers. I think they're going to be kind of more in the mindset of we didn't have it before, we don't necessarily need it now, and they're not going to use it. I don't see them using it regularly, whereas some of the newer, younger guys may make more creative use out of it.
Pnoles, what are your thoughts as far as what Hazy mentioned, that the managers may be gun-shy using this new power that they have?
Actually, my first impression, based on the way that they're structuring this rule, is that they might not be that gun-shy at all, just because since the umpires will have the ability to look at things after the seventh inning, that kind of, a little, at least in part, defeats the purpose of maybe saving this challenge for a more opportune time. So I think that if I'm a major league manager anyway, and I'm not sure that this is what's going to be going through their heads, but if I see something that looks overturnable early in the game, I'm probably going to go for it and not really be all that afraid of it, because the high leverage situations later on, there's always going to be the chance for the umpires to go back and take a look at things themselves.
Yeah, because my opinion is the two most common replay or challenges that we're going to see for managers, number one, plays at the plate. Runners sliding to the base, did the catcher actually hold on to the ball? Did the catcher actually tag the guy? Did the runner actually touch the base? I think that is going to be in a scenario. It's a bang-bang play. It's very difficult for the home plate umpire to get in position to make the right call. So I think that's going to be the number one. The number two, I think, is going to be the plays at first. And because let's talk about the home plate scenario. It's in the third inning. Runner on second. Single up to center field. Center fielder throws a beam to home plate. Close play. It's only the third inning. Is that a time that you would want somebody like Robin Ventura, that let's say the runner is safe, but on replay it looks like he's out, that you would want him to challenge it, or do you want to hold on to that challenge later on in the game when it may be a bigger impact later on?
Are we talking about this White Sox team that may not be able to make that run up?
Well, the White Sox have played a lot of close games last year,
and that's
in the sense of blowing them up.
You may be answering your own question. I mean, I think probably in this day and age, we've learned a lot more about the valuation of runs and run prevention, and And I don't think you can take anything for granted when it comes to taking a run off the board if you can, because you don't know. You can't predict what your lineup's going to be able to do against against a given rotation or a given bullpen, that second or third time or fourth time through the lineup. Um, guys can get hot going, the other guys can get hot going, moving into the later innings of the game. So I think you personally, if it's me sitting in the dugout, I'm throwing the red beanie, so to speak, out there to get that run off the board right away, and just assume that, just hope that it doesn't come back to bite me later, because you can't predict what's going to happen later, and I'd rather use that bullet now than to wait later on the game and it become useless.
Okay. I kind of agree with you on that. Pnoles, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree, and I think it's just I guess I really haven't been counting the number of controversial calls in games, but I really don't feel that they're all that frequent. I mean, I know that there's definitely at least one or so debatable thing per game as far as a safe or an out or a fair or a foul or something like that. But I think that if an opportunity like this comes about, that go ahead and throw the flag. And I guess, like I mentioned before, with the high leverage situations later in the game kind of being covered by umpire review, and I do believe that the umpires will use that liberally, because it's kind of reducing the accountability in them, and I think they're going to take full advantage of that, because let's be honest, nobody wants to take the blame for doing something wrong. So throw the flag, be aggressive about it.
I kind of disagree on that last point, Pnoles. I really don't think they're going to go to the replay booths from the 7th inning and on. Because with umpires, especially Major League level, they've been doing this job for a very long time. I think there's an ego within the umpire, fraternity, let's say. Let's call it that way. And I think if I'm an umpire, obviously the logical thing, if I didn't see it and it was going to really impact the game, I should go to the replay booth. But if I've been doing something for 20, 25 years without the use of replay, and I've been there and I've done that, I don't need to go to see the replay. I saw it, I made the call, and I think my call stands. Does that make sense? I think I'm going to have to disagree with you. I don't think umpires are going to use the replay system as often as we think from the 7th inning and on. And that's why, as far as managers, I could see the argument from the other side of the group. Don't waste them in the first, second, or third inning. Keep them in your back pocket just in case the umpire doesn't want to look at the replay booth in the 9th inning.
Well, one question that would need to be raised, and I don't know if this has been made abundantly clear yet, in the press releases, is who on the umpiring crew can initiate that post 7th inning replay. Is it just the crew chief, or is it any of the 4 umpires can say, no, we need to take another look at this? I assume that they're going to get together and talk about it, but I wonder if there's any kind of overruling ability that one umpire can. If one umpire thinks it needs to be looked at, then they're just going to do it, or if it has to be a unanimous decision, or if it's the crew chief's final call, or anything like that.
I'm not going to pretend like I knew this in advance, because I just looked this stuff up very shortly before the call. It does look like it is the crew chief's decision on that.
Well, there you go. Okay.
Okay, so the home plate umpire, they all group together. If the home plate umpire didn't see it and he goes to the crew chief and tells him we should look at a replay, then okay, that makes sense. I just don't see the umpires really using it as much or at all after the 7th inning, unless it was just a call that they just look at each other and they're going to say the guy's safe, but nobody really saw the play. Everyone missed it, and they just decide, okay, you're safe for now, but we're going to go to the replay booth and see what really happened, and then we'll make our call. I think that is going to happen very, very minimal, like maybe 10 times out of all the games that we played this year. If I were a betting man, I would say 10 times. Just because I think, umpires, they got egos. They do.
Well,
So
yeah, the Joe West of the world, dude, for sure. But like, I don't know.
yeah,
Do you think Jim Joyce would have wanted to take another look at that out at first base he called? Sorry, the safe he called at first base, that Armando Galarraga's perfect game. You know, sure
right,
he would have wanted
and
to take advantage of that. Of course, that's
and
pretty
that
bizarre. But
that is the call, right? That's the call that really sparked where we are now today as far as instant replay. Just like the NFL, before instant replay was league-wide, Jerry Rice fumbled that ball against the Green Bay Packers, and it would have, Steve Young to Terrell Owens for catch 2 would have never happened if there was instant replay. Galarraga would have had his perfect game. The Twins, that series may have been different against the Yankees in 2007.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, there's a bunch of what ifs. I don't really see umpires taking advantage of using the instant replay system. I guess, Pnoles, what are your thoughts about the way that Robin Ventura currently manages the game today? Do you think with the new rule changes with instant replay, it's going to make a big difference in the way that he manages?
Probably not. I would say a lot of the decisions that he has to make aren't really affected all that much by instant replay. I think the one that people have talked about the most is, using it to allow a relief pitcher some extra time to warm up. But other than that, I don't think it's going to really affect, decision-to-decision operations that much.
Do you think he's going to be one of those managers that abuses the replay, buy some extra time for the bullpen to get warm?
Well, I'm sure. I mean, Robin, like, I think any manager is probably going to be looking for that extra edge, and I don't think it's going to be much of a secret at all. I'm pretty sure, like, all 30 managers in the game are probably going to have that on their minds. But I wonder, like, if there's some sort of restrictions around this. Like, obviously, if some guy is out by like 6 steps at first base, like, are you allowed to like throw the challenge flag? Can the umpires overrule that? Like, I wonder how much control there is around being ridiculous about it. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, because there was a great article over on the Pittsburgh Pirates blog about teams, which teams were doing the best on using their bullpen in high leverage situations that gave the pitchers were in a competitive advantage in terms of FIP. And the Chicago White Sox were number 2. So the data states that Robin is actually using the bullpen wisely. He did at least last year. And the pitchers coming out of the bullpen were in a high leverage situation, but it gave the White Sox a competitive advantage. The results, of course, much, beg to differ as far as the data. But, based on the data and the math, it states that, there were a lot of complaints last year in the game threads of, Robin, why are we making another pitching change? Robin, why are you keeping Nate Jones in for another inning? But all the doubting and the data suggests that he was playing the card well. Now, how much is that on Robin versus, Cooper? Not quite sure. Maybe Coop is making some calls and then Robin's going out and actually processing them. But based on that data and, the point I'm trying to get around to eventually is Robin last year, according to data, was very good at high leverage situations using his bullpen properly. If he can buy some extra time for the bullpen by keeping his challenge and then using a challenge in a scenario that is suitable, but he knows that he can buy 4 or 5 pitches in the bullpen, the guy will be ready to go. He'll step out after the replay is done. Catcher will go to the mound for a chat. Robin will go back out and make a pitching change. Do you think Robin will start to use the bullpen more in the upcoming year? And as far as in those scenarios, should we see more innings pitched out of the bullpen?
I guess I could go. I think that it'll maybe be like a marginal uptick. I mean, I think that if like a pitcher suddenly gets into trouble on the mound and you don't have anybody warming up in the bullpen, and a situation arises like he starts getting rattled a little bit, giving up some hits, and you don't have any guys ready to go, then yeah, I mean it'll help him. It could possibly help Robin get somebody up and ready and into the game a little bit sooner. But beyond that, I don't know how big of an impact it's going to have on the innings pitched.
And it's got to make sense, right? It's got to make sense. You're not going to just challenge something for the sake of challenging. You know, the scenario has to merit. It's an interesting scenario.
That's kind of the big question is, and how can you pull that off if it's just a pop fly to left or something like that. If there's nothing controversial about the call, then you're not really in a position to abuse the privilege. But we don't, having nobody's seen how it's going to work yet. So it's going to be interesting to see how the more crafty veterans might start worming their way around the rules to make the rules work for them in a way that is maybe not necessarily within the initial guidelines of what Major League Baseball is trying to accomplish, but
right.
But yeah, it just remains to be seen, and I think it's going to be really interesting to watch it all unfold this year.
Yeah. Well, thankfully, Jim Leland is not managing. He was target number one that I thought of as far as abusing the system and then becoming rain delays. Last point as far as instant replay. I know we talked a lot about managers. How do you think this will impact pitchers? You have a replay, you're at pitch 96, you're in the 7th inning, and you got to stay warm, because you don't know how long it's going to take. A minute, 2 minutes, it may seem forever. How do you see this impacting as far as starting pitchers in a game with the delays?
Well, I mean, I would hope it's going to go quickly. I mean, Pnoles, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're going to put a call into the MLB home office in New York, right? And so it's going to be kind of like hockey, right? Or is it going to be on site?
It says Replay Command Center, which is a pretty sweet name for it, out in New York.
So they do make the call to New York.
Mm-hmm.
I want that job.
Right?
That'd be pretty sweet.
Get paid to watch baseball, and then wait for the red phone to ring.
All right, it's my time to shine. Here we go.
Right. What's the call? Yeah, interesting. But I just figured it really I guess it depends on how long a call takes. I mean, if it's 2 minutes, it's not that big of a deal. Pitcher gets on the mound, he throws a couple warm-up tosses if he's allowed to. Pitchers, that's one thing people don't know as far as in the rules. You just can't willy-nilly throw warm-up pitches. So I'm kind of curious, because if you got Chris Sale and he's on pitch 97 with a runner on first and second, and it's going to replay, with him pacing around the mound, it's only 2 minutes, but 2 minutes, he cooled off a little bit. Maybe he was in a rhythm. Maybe the hitter goes back, looks at the scouting report, thinks about what pitch that he wants, and then boom, game changer. So maybe it's just paranoid in me as far as delays, but if there's any impact other than making sure the calls are correct on the field, I think timing and the little delays will impact as far as pitching more than anticipated, if that makes sense.
Well, this isn't like the NFL where you have to look at it from 14 different angles, and you're not looking underneath a pile of bodies trying to see where a knee goes down and where the ball is at when the knee goes down. It's if it's a play at first, it's literally going to slow it down, wait foot first, foot on the bag first, and then the ball in the mitt, or vice versa. It's not going to be as involved as the NFL has to when they're deconstructing a play, on a out of bounds catch or whatever. So I think that it's going to go. I think that by the nature of the game of baseball, it's going to go quicker in the replays than in other sports where it's where it's utilized.
Yeah, and I think we've got a good example of how quickly it's going to go already. I mean, they're already reviewing the fair or foul on the home run. I mean, realistically, I can't think of a call that would take longer to resolve than that one, and those are really only going for like a couple of minutes. As far as how it impacts the pitchers, Slyder, I think when you said the word rhythm, I think that really struck a chord with me, because if you got a guy who's just absolutely painting the corners, he's in a groove, he's got all the hitters completely off balance, and then all of a sudden, the game just kind of stops and his rhythm has to break even for like a couple of minutes. You almost wonder if managers, like if it's getting to a point where the hitters just can't figure the guy out, whether the managers are just going to throw this flag just to try to disrupt them a little bit, maybe just ice the pitcher.
If they get that chance, yeah, I think I was kind of starting to go down that path too. As soon as you started talking, that it's kind of the opposite of taking time to warm up a pitcher instead of cooling. Instead, you're trying to cool off the opponent's pitcher. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, well, we'll see on opening day. If there's that opportunity. I guess over under in 162 games. What do you think the percentage of those, and not necessarily over under, what do you think the percentage of those games in which there's going to be a replay challenge in them?
A legitimate replay challenge, or just the flag is out?
Period. The flag is out, period. Flag is out, period. Legitimate or not, flag is out.
That's a good question. I'll defer to you, Pnoles.
Honestly, I was thinking of a completely different percentage before you asked that question. I would say that I'm actually going to go aggressive. I think we're going to see a flag in about 80% of games, about half of which are complete bullshit. Okay.
So you do think managers will just throw out the red flag for the sake of throwing it out?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's enough calls that are like fairly close. I mean, it seems like first base coaches start to yell about people being out or safe at first base, and obviously the players have their own opinions after umpires make these calls, and they're pretty animate about it. So yeah, I think the umpires they really don't have anything to lose. It's a use it or lose it proposition. I think that they will.
I mean, I can definitely see it going that way. My thought was a little more conservative, probably in the 35 to 40% range, and that was kind of my high end. So
okay.
But if I think if in the first couple of weeks you see it a lot, I think that's a trend that's probably going to carry out throughout the season, and that 80% number is, I think, absolutely attainable. It's especially if it starts paying dividends off right away, and the managers start figuring it out right away, then yes, I can definitely see that. It will the question though is, like I brought up earlier, will the old guard kind of embrace it or not? That's kind of I think what's going to dictate whether or not you see that kind of all-in integration into the game where you're going to get numbers like 80%. That's where it's going to come from. If these older managers embrace it right away, then absolutely I think you can hit that number without a doubt.
Well, we have something to keep track of during the year. see if Pnoles is right.
Get a spreadsheet going.
Yeah, get the Google Docs fired up. Well, I think that's a great ending as far as chatting about Instant Replay, as far as this particular episode for Southside Sox Hangout. So for Pnoles, Hazy, I'm Slyder Nelson, and make sure to be involved. Chat away as far as in the comments and the fan posts if you'd like to join as far as the podcast, or there's a topic you want us to chat about. Make a comment there, or you can send us an email at sss.hangouts@gmail.com. And also make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for future podcasts about specific topics that we are talking about at SouthsideSox.com. Thanks for listening.